DC Boxing Legend Podcast. 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 Home of the champions.
The Second Wind Sports Media and DMV Boxing Legend would like to introduce to you our new sponsor. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, El Paso Mexican Restaurant, located at 6151 Richmond Highway, Alexandria, Virginia. Ladies and gentlemen, yes, we have El Paso Mexican Restaurant. Also, if you're looking to pregame every fight night, amateur or pros, come out to El Paso Restaurant. They will guarantee you a discount. All you have to do is say you that DMV Boxing Legend and the Second Wind Sports Media sent you, you will get a discount. If you're looking for a way to power up your nutrients with a plant-based protein powder, then raw vegan plant-based protein is the perfect choice. This vegan protein is packed with essential nutrients to help you stay energized and healthy. With plant-based protein powder becoming increasingly popular amongst health-conscious individuals, it's no surprise that raw vegan plant-based proteins has become a leader in the industry. Whether you're an athlete or just looking to increase your daily protein intake, this vegan protein powder can help you reach your goals. Visit rawvegan.com. Again, rawvegan.com.
The fight, and there it is again.
Well, as I
and
told
again.
you, Caples is going to have to move. I've said this.
Oh, and another one.
This will not go over this round.
And Caples is down, and he may be finished. Rolls over on his back, gets to a knee, tries to find himself. He's up, he staggers, and that's it. That's it. Bobby Gonzalez stops the fight, and Kenny Baysmore adds one more notch to the gun.
Ladies and gentlemen, we have special guests. You got it, Daoud.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here with the DC Boxing Legend with my partner, Rashid Hammond, and we have the Baysmore. We have the Baysmore coming in, and we're going to be talking about his boxing legacy and his boxing career. First, I want to start off by saying thank you for coming aboard. One thing you fought for the PBA, like all of us, and they said Kenny Baysmore is a boxer from Washington, D.C., and had a career span from the early 1980s until the early 2000s, known for his fighting spirit. Baysmore was a two-time United States Boxing Associated champion and the National Golden Glove, which he won the Golden Glove in 1979 at bantamweight. He had a lot of remarkable moments, great amateur background, professional. You fought Roger Mayweather, Harold Knight, Sean B. Mitchell, and many more. And wow, I can't say enough about you, Baysmore. Thank you for coming on. Me and Rashid, we like to always give people their just due. And first, I want to start off. How did you get into boxing, Kenny?
I just know what I was doing.
Number 11 Boys and Girls Club.
What I want to do.
Number 11 Boys and Girls
Just learn what I want to do.
Number 11 Boys and Girls Club.
Number 11 Boys Club.
Okay.
So he started off when he was 15 at number 11 Boys and Girls Club, right there in Southeast DC, right up there off of Martin Luther King Jr.
I'm very familiar.
Avenue. And the legendary John Sneed was his coach. The assistant coach was Roscoe.
Okay.
Yeah.
I know both of them guys.
Yeah. You had Flip Johnson.
Yeah.
You had Eugene Speed, his brother.
Yeah.
You had It's another guy, and I still can't think of his name, but he was also a national Golden Glove champion, and he fought featherweight as well.
Okay.
Real tiny guy, but the boy could throw 200 punches.
Great.
You know, little tiny guys can throw them punches so
That's
fast.
right. That's
and
right.
Connecting too.
Yeah. Great.
So
Great.
he came out of a really, really good gym.
Mm-hmm.
And they had a really good team. I don't know if y'all remember the twins that used to box on the amateur circuit.
Okay.
Yeah, and both of them was twins. Unfortunately, one of them died in the air flight to the Olympic trials, and that was in 1980 when they were blown out of the air over Poland. Kenny was like the #1 contender on that USA team for the Olympic trials. A week prior to the trials, Kenny was in the gym and he got caught and it ruptured a nerve. So Happy Goat actually took him to the dentist. The dentist, of course, did an x-ray and saw that he had 4 wisdom teeth and extracted all 4 of the wisdom teeth a week prior to the Olympic trials. Okay.
Oh man, that was hard, boy.
Yeah. I'm kind of thanking God that I wasn't managing his amateur career because that wouldn't have happened under my management. You know, no, you can't extract his teeth right before a fight. But you know, God works in a mysterious way because he ended up not being able to go, and one of the twins, Victor, took his place. All 14 of those guys passed away. Charles, who was one of the best USA coaches for Olympics, he trained from the 60s all the way through. So we lost a hell of a coach in Coach Charles, who at the time was the coach for that Olympic US team. And the plane crashed, and it was a sad moment. Kenny, when he told me the whole story, you could still see how he just felt a certain way, but he was very grateful, you know, because God has a way of I mean, just look how he worked, you know. He got caught in the gym a week before and ruptured a nerve. And but then he went on, and of course DC Boxing Commission gave him a slap on the wrist because he went on and Pappy got him in the South African tournament. So we were there for 6 months and traveled to East London, to Johannesburg, in 6 different little countries in South Africa, and he brought back all the medals. He brought back all the medals. As a matter of fact, the president, a prime minister that just invited us to the multicultural inauguration ball on the 20th remembers Kenny from the boxers. So he sent them a VIP.
Oh, that is outstanding.
Yeah, so he is very well known. And you know, Jackie Biggs was like awesome back then. He was in what is it, Angelo Dundee's camp. Yeah, and I know y'all remember the great Angelo Dundee, which was a trainer, but he also went on to be a promoter. And then you had the 2 twins from out of New Jersey, the brothers, that were great promoters and trainers. But it's a long career, 30 years. And I started managing him in 1987, December. And I actually was looking at a contract that he brought to my office. And I looked at the contract, 15-page contract. And I said, you know, everything is negotiable. Because I looked at the contract and I said, wow, they're never going to let you go. It's a pimping contract. And you know, looking at 2 contracts at the time, and then Brig Owens, you know, the former Redskin football player. Brig was also an engineer, and he worked at the in the legal department for the National Football Players League Association. So Kenny worked there part-time in between him training and boxing and traveling, and his amateur record was 70 with I think 3 losses and 68 KOs. Okay, so he was a hell of an amateur fighter. And the first time he fought Jackie Biz in 78, it's like Jackie won by a decision. So Pappy Gold was so upset over that till he pressed the commission. He's like pressed the national committee and said, "No, y'all know y'all robbed my man. Y'all know y'all robbed my man." So 6 months later, that's when they had the rematch. That was unusual because normally, you know, once you go through a national and you go to the finals, hey, that's a done deal. That's it. It's not professionals, it's amateur boxing.
That's right.
But that's what gears you up to actually propel you into Olympics. And you don't ever want to go from national into pro until you face the Olympic trials, because that is what increases your marquee value.
That's correct.
Okay. So it was the journey has been really wild. Rashid said, y'all got a movie. And you know, look, I'm coming out with the book this spring. I have 2 filmmakers that wanted to do the project, but I'm waiting for the right one where it's really going to showcase just how difficult women had it, even getting into that all world men's world of boxing. Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's a true story of but see, for me, I was like, I think 30 years old, 31 when but I had been a CEO of a high-tech firm at 2000 K Street since I was 21. So me dealing with these guys was like a walk in the park for me. Okay, because I had been groomed by all men and they were powerful men. And being the first female CEO in the country for a high-tech firm, it prepared me for that circle. But it was a lot of wars behind the scene. It really was. There's a lot of wars. And I think the story should be told because females, I remember when Ali's daughter she was in California. She had a nonprofit back in 1990. And we had just came off of the 4-round Strolls and Great Western Forum $250,000 tournament. And Kenny just shocked everybody in boxing because they underestimated him. Because after the loss to Mayweather, and you know, Kenny had that title. And when he lost it against Mayweather, it should have been a rematch, but it wasn't because Michael King, which is Don King's son, offered a contract. But after he lost that, and he shouldn't have lost because Wild World of Sports had the contract had a reschedule clause inside the contract. Now, Mike Traynor, which was Sugar Ray Leonard's manager and also attorney, was the one that made the fight. Okay. But 3 days prior to the fight on that Thursday, Kenny got up and went running around 5 a.m. in the morning. They were in Texas. And he said, I was sweating so bad. And by the time I got to the gym at 6:30 and I went to work the heavy bag, it was like I couldn't even bust a grape. So Mike came in the gym and saw he was sweating so bad and took him to a doctor. And they tested him. He had strep throat. He had caught strep throat because he was there like a week prior to the actual event in Texas. And so Mike had asked the doctor the doctor gave him a penicillin shot right in the office. And Mike asked the doctor, was he going to be all right to fight Sunday? Now, this was, mind you, on a Thursday. So the doctor told Mike, all I can say is he's going to feel better. But if I was managing that, there's no way I'd have took advantage of the reschedule clause in the contract because he was the champion. So why am I going to risk my belt and I'm only 35, 40%? But a lot of times in this game, it's all about the money. It's not about the actual fighter with a lot of these managers and promoters.
That's right.
And I think that helped to change that game somewhat. Because I just wasn't going for anything.
Right. Rashi and I always discuss about the dirty side of boxing that a lot of people are not familiar with, that goes beyond the boxing. Boxing is a sport, but it's a business first, especially when you turn professional. And it's a dirty game.
Absolutely.
And it's a lonely sport. Dirty. As long as you're winning, you're good. But as long as you're not, it's a lonely sport. Hold on 1 second, y'all. Go ahead, Rashi.
Yeah, it's one of those sports where they love you when you're hot, they push you to the curb when you're not.
Yeah,
I heard,
and then you have a lot of hang-oners. You have a lot of hang-oners that can really badly influence that athlete. You know, I look at Tank here from Baltimore. I was the first one that spotted that young man's talent. He was 18. And because I broadcasted it on my live podcast, my promotional, when we were in the gym, we had a 2-year pilot program in East Baltimore, based on House of Champions partnering with Honeycomb Boxing. And when I went and visited the other 4 gyms, I saw this young fellow in there, and I'm like, and he hadn't turned 18 yet.
Right.
And I have always believed in working with parents when it comes to athletes, because they have to be with the right mentors. If they're not with the right mentors, you can make so much money. And being that young, if you have a lot of hang-oners that are not really your friends, that are not in your best interest, it can destroy that athlete at an early age. It really can. I mean, I could tell you some stories. I mean, it's just so sad. I remember when Sean Bay came and asked me after Kenny fought Pernell Whitaker, he said, Zeke, can you train me? But I've always been a fair person. And I mean, that is probably what I'm most proud of, is I'm a fighter when it comes to just making sure you fair. Making sure, and if I have to make you be fair, that's a side you don't want to see, because I will go to the extreme. And my thing is, I'm gonna hurt you at your bank. I'm not, yeah, because, and then I'm gonna publicly let it be known, because that's the only way you stop the corruption.
Right.
The only way. You have to call it out. Okay. So, you know, just like with Tank now, I feel kind of sad, because when you're dealing, and I told Sean Bay, no, I mean, you know, and I don't think Rock Newman would have mind, because Rock knew how serious of a trainer I was. You know, I was very hard. There was no partying. There was no drinking. There was no doing drugs. There was nothing but being dedicated to the game.
Okay.
Period. And if you're not dedicated, I don't have time. I was running a high-tech firm. Who has time to invest time in someone that is not disciplined enough to be serious about the game?
Right.
You know?
So during this time now that you see all these young female world champions, how do you feel knowing that you was a pioneer who played a part in opening up the doors for a lot of these young sisters that's now able to fight freely and make money for themselves?
You know, I remember after coming off of that tournament, and that's how I gave Kenny the name the technician, because people weren't lasting 2 or 3 rounds at Great Western Forum with him.
Right.
And Mike Johnson, Magic used to come to he was there at every fight.
Right.
He's a true fight fan, okay? And I remember that's when Mike had took on the position of being a front end manager, first black manager to manage a basketball team, you know. So we were supporting him, and it's an exciting time. But there's a lot in the game. It's a lot in the game because I ruffled the COO's feather because I kind of made them honor the contract.
Okay.
Like 2 weeks before the semifinals, I got a phone call. I'm in La Jolla, and I get a phone call from the COO, Tony Curtis, saying, Zulieka, we're gonna have to move y'all onto the finals. I mean, to the semifinals, because our fighter got injured in the gym during practice. And so, I kind of absorbed that.
Right.
And then this is how I came back. I said, I mean, I would love nothing more than to make sure that Kenny is in that semifinals as the contract calls for.
Right.
There. But if y'all want to just pay us the $25,000 and move us on, we'll take it. Okay, they hurried up and got a replacement, right?
That's right.
So we went, but that kind of ruffled fellas. And so JD Brown, and you're familiar with JD Brown.
Yes, indeed. Yes,
yeah.
indeed.
So JD Brown called me the next day. He said, Zulieka, what you doing to them guys out there in California? They calling all up here to Don King, to Madison Square Garden, talking about, who is she? Who is she?
Right.
And so, what is the guy, McMillan, who was the lead matchmaker for Don King in Madison Square Garden, say she's a bitch. She one thing, she expensive. She not gonna let you pimp her fight.
That's right. That's right.
I'm serious. And so when we won they called it a draw. Kenny, they brought back the same guy that Kenny knocked out in the quarter.
Right.
Bouts. Okay.
Wow.
And so I said, "Oh, y'all gonna play that game? Okay, all right. I see how y'all coming." So yeah. So Ali Layla, she called and she said, "How hard is it? Because I have a foundation here in LA.
Right.
I'm working with a lot of youths, but I want to raise $1 million for my foundation.
Okay.
How hard is it in the gym?" And I said, Layla. And this is when Layla was like 200 and something pounds. She's always been tall. She's like about 6'4", 6'5".
Yeah.
Always been a tall woman.
Right.
I said, it's work. But you already have the marquee value because of your dad, because of your name.
Right.
Okay. I said, but don't take anything for granted.
Right.
Dedicate yourself to it, make the money, put it in what your true vision is, and let it be that. You don't, it doesn't need to be a career for you. And that rocketed her. You had the Christy Martin, the coal miner's daughter at the time that was a champion, a Walter Knight, so it was an exciting time. But Christy went through hell. And I'm sure y'all saw her story. She
did.
Pure hell and back.
True statement.
Only God, okay? Only God. Because she went through a lot. And what made it so bad, it wasn't about going through a lot in the industry, more than it was her ex-husband and people around her. And this is why I say you have to really be selective about who you have in your circle.
True statement.
And that's just with life. And that's why Kenny in my circle has always been just
That's right.
Hands. And we don't go beyond that.
Let me ask you this question.
Mm-hmm.
How did it become you and him? You became a Baysmore. I need to know.
Well, look, how did Kenny say? He said what? Kenny,
what I mean,
story
what
of
I mean,
come you and I be turned into Miss Baysmore.
Mrs. Baysmore.
Kenny said, yeah, of course.
The story about you, like Dawood, I was telling Dawood did not know that you guys were married. That he thought you was coming on as Kenny's manager today. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Well, let me tell you, long story, and it's in the book, and the book is called The Establishment.
Okay.
The world's most corrupt power players behind in boxing. So, so anyway, we got to take that back to December the 17th of 1987.
Okay.
I'm in the bank. Okay, right there, Nations Bank, 18th and K Street. I got an office, the 6th floor at 2000 K. So I'm running with all the big boys.
Okay.
In that K Street corridor,
K Street, yes, indeed.
Yeah. And so I'm there. I'm in line. Kenny's in the commercial line.
Okay.
So I happen to glance over because I'm in line. It's lunchtime. A lot of people in line. But I noticed these wine-colored gator shoes.
Okay.
Gator shoes. And I'm always looking at people's feet.
Right.
I'm always it's about people's feet.
Okay.
And their style tells me a lot about their personality, their character, how serious they are, and how they represent image-wise. Right. So I'm looking at that. And then I get off of that. I'm getting ready to be called next. So I'm in there in line. And next thing I know I had this little tap on my shoulder.
Okay.
Okay. So I turn around. It's Mr. Baysmore.
Okay.
Mind you, at that age, at 28,
okay,
I was so busy. I had just got promoted to regional vice president for A.L. Williams, which is
named A.L. Williams. My father was in A.L. Williams.
Matter of fact, I knew Art in himself. I was their #1 regional vice president.
Okay, so you probably know my father because he was in A.L. Williams. Kelvin Hammond. You knew Keith.
Yes.
Keith
did you know Lafayette Walker?
Lafayette. I knew all of them when I was a kid.
I helped propel Lafayette to become the first Black national sales director.
I remember them.
Okay.
Because y'all used to have y'all meetings over there off of Annapolis Road.
Now that was Bert Willer and them over there.
Okay.
Lafayette's office.
My father was under Lafayette. He was under Lafayette.
I knew I recognized the name in your face.
Yep.
Familiar.
Yeah, my father, Kelvin Hammond.
Yeah, I remember him.
Ask
him, do he remember?
My father passed away. He passed away.
Oh,
passed away in 2012.
My mom and dad passed away too.
Yeah, he was my boxing trainer too. So
okay. All right.
Keith, what's Keith's last name? Keith Rogers. You knew Keith Rogers?
I knew Keith Rogers as well.
Yeah, yes, indeed. Keith was with me when Ray Leonard came to town about a month ago. Keith was with me. Yes, indeed. Yeah. I didn't know you was in A.O. Williams. That's what's up.
Look, nobody had ever became a regional vice president in less than 2.5 years.
Okay, you killed it. Yes, indeed.
5.5 months.
Yes, indeed.
They had 220 agents.
Yes,
I
indeed.
worked so fast till after 2 weeks, they had me doing all the recruitment and financial seminars.
That's what's up.
I built that thing so fast.
Yeah, A.O. Williams was a very that right there would make my father become financially.
He was a high school football coach.
Yeah, yes. Yep.
And became a billionaire.
Lafayette. I'm gonna tell my mother about. She remembers to say that. She gonna remember that name though.
Yeah. I came in there like a ball of fire because I was CEO of a high-tech firm.
Okay.
But like I do now, I wear many hats.
Okay.
And so I got in there, recruited 179 team in 5.5 months.
That's what's up.
Sold about 635 policies.
Oh, you was
One
crushing.
Acapulco trip in 4 months.
You was crushing. You
The
was
people
crushing.
from California was calling up here and said, "Who is she?"
Yes, indeed. You was crushing. I remember that because that's how we moved from DC to my father started a franchise with A.O. Williams in
Right.
South Carolina. We moved down there in South Carolina.
Right.
And
right now today, they still Prime America's still trying to get me back. Because you can actually own the franchise now.
Right. Okay. So Prime America is A.O. Williams. Is it the old A.O. Williams?
Art Williams sold A.O. Williams in 1988.
Okay, that's the same year that he was in. My father was in there in 88. That's when we was down in South Carolina.
85, yeah.
Okay.
And he sold it at first to Lincoln Investors.
Okay.
In Texas. And then Lincoln Investors kept it maybe not even a year.
Okay.
And Citicorp.
So that's why you got those financial
background.
Now it's making sense. Now it's totally because that's the same way my father operated because of that A.O. Williams knowledge that
you learned that knowledge about how money works, honey.
Exactly.
You learned that knowledge. But Kenny and I met in the bank, and he asked me he introduced himself and asked me he said, "Would you give me the honors of attending our company's Christmas party?" Because we met that Thursday.
Okay.
12:45 p.m. the 17th of December.
Okay.
And Kenny, 2 weeks later, he said, because it's going to be at the Waldorf Hotel. Now, of course, I was impressed.
Okay.
So I said, okay, I'll give me a call. And Kenny, I would come in the office, and at the time I had another contract up at Shefferman and Bigelson, which is the top engineer firm in the country. They're the ones that did all the electrical, all the piping, and the architect for the Deep Washington Convention Center under Mayor Barry.
Okay.
That first was built on 9th Street. And so I was there doing a lot of their automation and got that contract, even though my office was still at 2,000K. But we were there. I was there in their in-house with them.
Okay.
And so I told Kenny, okay, honey, after about a week, I would come from lunch or come from my office downtown. And, back then you had the pink little message pads, right?
Yeah.
And I think the receptionist said, Miss Moore, you have some messages there. And I, as usual, would grab messages and go right back to work. Don't even look at the messages, really.
Okay.
And next thing I know, I had about 35 messages from Kenny Baysmore. And so I ended up one evening, I had kind of slowed down. So I said, let me call this man back. So I called him back, and he wasn't home.
Okay.
So I missed going. And guess what? I called him like 2 days before the event, right?
Right.
His brother Chris found him a date from Valley Green where they grew up at.
Okay. Valley Green.
The next time I got the phone call from him, he asked me, would I take a look at a contract?
Okay.
And I said, yeah, you could come down and bring it down my office and I'll take a look at it. So I looked at the contract and I just shook my head. And I said, well, it's a good thing contracts are negotiable.
Right.
Okay? So I went and broke down some of the clauses in the contract and everything.
Yes, indeed.
So Kenny asked me then, would you think about managing my boxing career?
Okay.
And that's how the relationship started. So it wasn't met for like back in those days, you my man, I'm your lady. It wasn't meant.
I
The
got you.
connection was not meant for that purpose. And I tell people all the time that when we meet people, whether it's an attraction or whether it's, position or whether it's we're having a conversation and that you can really relate to that person, you never know why God plants you into people's lives.
Right.
But it's always on purpose for purpose. So looking at that contract, I said, why would you pay someone, a promoter, 25% of whatever the promoter derives that the purse is worth, and pay the manager another 25%, and then you have to pay your trainer 10%.
Right.
And Sam's going to want his too.
Right.
I said, so this is a one-sided contract. It's a pimping contract. Is what it is. And I would call stuff out for what it is.
Right.
I'm like, you're the commodity.
That's correct.
And when I do contracts, I look at how much I'm going to invest, because it's always a monetary investment when it comes to athletes. And then I look at my time investment.
Right.
Okay. So my contract was just a straight 30% contract. I negotiate the fights. It's got to be worth it because, promoters back then didn't want to pay fighters unless they had you on an exclusive promotional contract. They wouldn't even talk about negotiating the air rights or the gate,
right,
or the book, or the.
They wouldn't even let them know it. I'm sure.
They didn't even let
them know it. Right. About those options.
They didn't even, they would take a fighter. Don King was famous for this. They would take a fighter and sit down with him and say, okay, Mike King is the management company. Because in the state of Maryland, that's a conflict of interest.
Right.
In D.C., it's a conflict of interest.
Yeah.
In New York, it's not.
Right.
As long as both parties agree to it. So Don King, dealing with a Washingtonian, a fighter from D.C., had his son's management agency to be the manager in the contract.
Right.
And of course, Don King was the exclusive promoter.
Right.
So
he was really working both ends.
Oh, no question.
Management
and so and my whole thing was when Brigg first told him, no, don't take the contract, because Pappy Gold, actually they approached Pappy Gold first, who was his trainer.
Okay.
And John Sneed was his other trainer at number 11.
Okay.
And they ended up, Pappy Gold ended up getting some investors to open up a gym on Georgia Avenue called House of Champions.
House of Champions.
That gym was open before that reason when Norman Smith, with his son,
okay,
right. And I think Norman died a few years ago, and the son got it and sold it.
Okay.
Yeah.
The building. Yeah.
Yeah. But I can tell you the history behind this game here. I mean, from Europe to Mexico to the United States.
And
go ahead.
And my other partner sees, we always talk about this for fighters in the future. Pensions or some form of savings or something we can help.
You know what, Rashid? I am so glad you're bringing that up, because I've really lobbied for that when I was in California. And actually, Sacramento's boxing commissioner and their governor agreed with me. So they started a pension fund for boxers.
Wow.
Now, I don't like how they set that up. I really don't like how they set it up, because what it did when I went to go after his pension a couple of years ago, because we fought a total of we fought a total of 9 times in California.
Okay.
And what they did was they broke it down to me where they were going to change how that pension worked, but it was only for fighters that have fought at least 12 fights in the state of California. Like, what happens to the money that y'all took out of the purse? He said that goes into the pool.
Yeah.
Fighters that end up, so that has to change. It should be individualized.
Right.
It should be an option. And so I'm lobbying for that now. You know, I won my primaries for state delegate for District 40 in Baltimore City.
Yes, indeed. I saw that.
Car. But I have a lot of influence and I have a lot of connections to this administration.
Okay.
And I think we're going to get it done. I think with the Congress, more women in the House of Representatives,
right.
I think we can actually get a bill, a lot of people to co-sponsor it. And I'm going to
let me know.
Yeah, I want y'all to work on it. Because what I spent the last 5 years doing is I started here in Maryland, but I also spoke to the presidents of the different championship and associations, like for the WBA, the WBC.
Yes,
I spoke to the president in Virginia.
Right.
And
Okay.
It felt it was a great idea.
Yes,
another thing that I'm really going to be pushing for, and even some promoters, another thing I want to push for is that professional athletes in the boxing arena must be required to wear some type of head protection. So I've invented, and I've got a patent pending right now. It's been tested for about 2.5 years.
Okay.
We had the pilot program. So it's a special piece of headgear that only covers the temporal and the mid part of the head. So you can see the full face of the fighter.
Right, right.
It protects and absorbs punches.
In the specific areas.
Right here, where the temporal and then the center part, which is the soft part of the skull.
I understand.
So, but the main thing is to get that legislation passed into law.
Okay.
Because why have we always protected the amateurs?
Right.
But then once they turn pro, they're the true commodities then. We've had boxers to die in the ring.
Show enough.
Getting out of a ring.
Show enough.
So we can't continue that. Do you know there's so much talent in Baltimore City? Even Floyd stole Tank from me, but it's so much talent on the female side and on the men's side in Baltimore City, in Maryland, in DC. There's so much talent on the East Coast.
Most definitely.
I actually have fighters that started off in the gym with Kenny, with us in the pilot program, but then we get in little fights on the street, and we try to teach our athletes, you don't use this power.
That's right.
And don't get paid for it.
At all.
You mediate situations.
Yep.
You must learn how to fight with this.
Yep.
That's right.
You mediate situations. Because what good is your career if you end up getting locked up or you end up getting sued because you done either broke somebody's jaw or broke somebody, or really injured someone. So this one middleweight that we had, this boy would have been a beast.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. Because he wasn't just a puncher. This boy was, Kenny had taught, and I was teaching him technique, the real art of boxing. Because when I first started working with Kenny, Kenny was just a knockout artist.
Right.
He wasn't technical.
Right.
But he had that, man, his fists are like rock stones. I mean, seriously. But I saw when he fought Myron Taylor, Marvin Taylor's brother.
Okay.
I saw in that video, I said, you know what, Bays, I can make you a world champion. But you just went 12 rounds with this guy. And you just did the work.
Right.
When you could have finished that in 2 or 3 rounds.
Right.
And I said, you're not using your reach. You had a 4-inch reach advantage. You're not using your speed of your legs because you're standing right in there just exchanging punches with him.
Right.
And you have so much potential. So I began to work with him in the gym. Now, I got to tell you, the first 2 months, the guy cursed me out. But guess what? I cursed his ass out and embarrassed him so bad in number 11. I did not, Kenny. Kenny was being like this arrogant, male chauvinist. Like, I'm like, because at first he tried to ignore me. And
Right.
I'm like, baby, I could be here. I got nothing but time today. But I'm gonna get what I want to see. Okay.
I got a question. Do he still have the signature part? I can't tell from here. He still
Yes,
got the signature middle part.
Look, he's got a white line.
Okay.
Natural white line now.
Oh, is it okay? I was looking for the signature part that he had. That's how we knew who he was. We was do that part. He had that part in the middle of the head. Yes, indeed.
And you know, I kept that going.
Oh, you did? Okay. That was signature going right there. Yes, indeed. We knew who Kenny. You got it, brother.
It's great that you have someone like you. You're a real definition of relationship.
Yes,
relationship
indeed.
has a SHIPS, take you somewhere. A ship take you somewhere and it sails.
Absolutely.
And that is a great thing for being a helpmate. Like
right.
Give us a woman. This is a real definition of a marriage that's needed. You know,
right.
In our community, marriage is looked upon because a lot of people only get married for what they can get out instead of what they can put in to the marriage.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And I
so
tell
this is what calls people.
You are so right. How do you pronounce your first name?
It's Daoud.
Oh, Daoud. You are talking such truth into light because as I was saying, and I teach this to young women here in Baltimore, and I used to teach it when we were in the city so much in DC.
Right.
It's like, why aren't you growing together? Because the world I come from, my parents were married 65 years and died 2 months apart. My mom went in her sleep. My dad was 88 and a half, and my mom was 90.
Wow.
And a happy wife is a happy life.
Yeah.
And if you marry a woman that, number one, got your back, number two, that can always be about understanding how to manage the home, how to manage the money, that have respect for the dollar, that can guide and help to groom your children.
That's correct.
And you got it all. You
That's
got
right.
it all. If you got a man that is a hard worker, that gets joy out of getting up 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock in the morning, going to take care of his business, whether it's a carpenter, whether it's construction, whether it's a DPW worker, whether it's a police officer, whether it's a firefighter, whether it's a athlete, whether it's a laborer, whether it's a artist, whether it's a musician, whether it's a creator, whether it's a politician, whether it's a doctor, a lawyer, whether it's a fast food or restaurant worker, whether it's a server, no matter what that man is doing.
And you know, Zulieka,
is consistent and persistent, and that will bring that money home and entrust that woman to manage that money wisely, to invest that money, to save that money, to not put you further in debt, but to only live at your means.
That's right.
And then to build so you can make progress and move beyond your means and move in a position and make sure that you're saving for those children's future or obtaining the vehicles that are necessary to have there for your children's future. You got the world. You are truly blessed.
Now, you know, Zulieka, a lot of times these new athletes and everything, and a lot of men made this mistake. They get married for the wrong reason, and the woman is coming for just the wealth, and they taking it out. I see a lot of athletes, professional athletes, they are marrying for the wrong reason, for the looks and not the mind of a woman, but the looks.
Right.
And they know the woman wouldn't talk to them if they didn't have money. Only thing they have in common is money. And so when they get taken by money, it becomes bitter. But man is the one to select his wife. A woman controls.
Thank you. I told somebody that once. I'm like, I'm not going to select. I'm not going to select the man. That man selects.
The man selects the woman. The woman can't make the man marry her. That's his job to marry the woman.
Absolutely.
And so men get bitter because they are selecting the wrong woman. It's our fault that we didn't do a thorough search on, because it's the mind that's going to raise your child. It's the mind, not the body, not the looks. It's the mind. And a lot of these professional athletes are marrying women that don't have no love for them, just only fame and fortune. Now, if you didn't love your husband, you wouldn't be there now for your husband. So it was deeper than that. You had lived a good life with him, and you also living the other life that you are maturing and nurturing. And this is what a woman's for. She's a helpmate that God sent you. You with him to the end of it. It's the beginning when the fans and the crowd is there.
Absolutely.
It's the fans there, and when the fans is not there with him, you still with him.
Right.
So that's a blessing.
And, you know, I think Kenny, you know, we fought 2004, and I retired him after that fight. The game was just so. The people in the game, the boxing commissioners, I mean, just so much corruption in the game. I got to go back. I was talking to Rasheem about this the other day, and I've got to go back and correct what was that Wikipedia, and I've got to go back in and correct some of like what is that Box Rec? You know, where they have records, because there was so much corruption, especially because I was the only female at the time that was into boxing. And then you had Pat that got into promotions the same time I got into promotions, that owned the liquor stores. I don't know if y'all remember Pat. Matter of fact, we fought on one of Pat's cards, and I had to delay the whole fight show for like an hour because they gonna come at me over at the school when Kenny fought Boo Boo Sawyer. And McKnight jumped in the ring. Kenny caught Boo Boo, and Boo Boo reached up and caught and just swung a Hail Mary and caught Kenny. But then McKnight jumped in the ring and stopped the fight. And I'm like, and Boo Boo told Kenny years later, Boo Boo said, man, you won that fight. I mean, you caught me in my body, and if my hand hadn't just went back, he didn't get knocked to the ground, but McKnight jumped in the ring. And you're going to read in my book why McKnight kept hindering Kenny's career.
You know, Zulieka, one thing I acknowledge coming up in Washington, D.C., when I should see all of the great fighters, Washington, D.C. had a lot of great fighters, but we had a lot of meat men in our setting our fighters up for other fighters to beat our fighters.
You're right. Oh,
they put them in the lion's den. Instead of building them up, they was putting them in the lion's den for outside fighters to take advantage of our professional boxers that had great amateur background. And they were setting them up. They would match them with somebody 2-3 pounds over
Overweight.
They abuse overweight, everything.
Right.
They abuse our fighters.
Yeah.
Right.
There's more great fighters in this area, but they abuse them.
They abuse them.
Just
Just as a money maker. Just
Yep.
as a money. You
Yep.
know, if you take a look even at Sean Bay Mitchell's background,
Mhm.
Sean Bay fought 3 amateur fights before going pro because Rock Newman would take a guy literally off the street. I tell you, literally, Rock Newman was the first guy, the first promoter to ever do what he did, which changed the whole process of boxing forever. And that's why you don't have the type of talent that you had back in the days. Because those boys had to fight 70, 75, 100. You had Chavez that fought 200 amateur fights before his coaches would even think about turning him pro. You had Baysmore that had 79 amateur fights, 69 KOs, 2 draws, I think 2 or 3 losses, and went to the Nationals to win the Nationals. Those boys, because coaches cared. They understood that it was about building that person to be the best they can be.
That's right.
Before turning them pro. Not taking people and building the record on people that's never boxed, bringing them in the gym, teaching a little technique, and then they last 1 or 2 rounds. And then when they truly come up against a true fighter,
facts,
they ain't got nothing common. Or they use you pull a illegal punch, and then you can really seriously injure the other fighter.
Facts.
You feel what I'm saying? And so, you're going to read so many stories in this book. Matter of fact, Senator Roth of Delaware wanted the first one before it even hit the stores.
Wow.
Before he died, because this book was nothing but the truth. It's documented. I still got letters that I wrote, demands that I made, videos, and I can call Home Team Sport right now and get the back video of the fight when he fought Anthony Snuggs, which was the last fight. Sugar Ray Leonard Jr.
Oh, they fought each other too? They fought each other?
Kenny broke his jaw. Kenny broke his jaw. The referee stopped the fight. Let me tell you how bizarre this fight was.
Man,
it was the Great Historic in Lincoln Theater on U Street.
Okay.
And it was in November of 2002.
Okay.
And Sugar Ray Leonard Jr. was his first promotions he had ever did. He was trying to get into the promotional side of the game.
Okay.
And Leonard was managing. Okay. So I went ahead and agreed to do it. I agreed to let Kenny fight. And because we were getting ready to retire.
Okay.
So I said, okay, this is gonna be the last fight. Okay. So Kenny got in there. And in the, I think, 5th, 3rd, or 4th, or 5th round, Kenny hit Anthony so hard it knocked his mouthpiece out. So the referee took Kenny to his corner, waved him to his corner. So he got the mouthpiece washed off, put the mouthpiece back. They went and commenced on fighting. Kenny came back to finish him and knocked him so bad you heard the boy's jaw break. Knocked the mouthpiece out again. The guy's jaw went like this, like instantly. You could really hear the bones breaking.
Wow.
And the referee came in and just went like this. You stopped the fight. He just stopped the fight. The fight was over. He told Kenny, go to your ring. He was getting ready to hold his hand up. Do you know when Kenny went to turn around to go to his corner, apparently Anthony Snuggs, it woke him up because he was literally out on his feet. And he rushed Kenny and punched him in the face. And Kenny went down. McKnight ran in the ring. Do you know they altered the fight tape, showing where as if somebody had threw a towel from the corner? And I knew McKnight's class ring, his Howard University class ring, and his hand. It was him, and they got Juice, and I know y'all know who Juice is.
Yeah, we know who Juice is.
All the fight tapes of Baysmore and all the legendary fighters. They had Juice to actually refilm a certain section after everybody had left the arena. And they tried to give the fight to Anthony Suggs. Anthony Suggs never fought after that. Home Team Sports reporter came up to me and said, what do you think about him actually committing abuse, attacking your fighter after the fight was over? And do you know that Ring Ratings still has that as a loss for Kenny? So I'm going to come after everybody. They're going to correct the record, okay? Because I've got
people still around. Are they still living?
No, Arnold McKnight passed away.
Okay.
He passed away 3 years after that. I think sometime in 2005, 2006.
Okay.
But we still, Home Team Sports still has the library in Bethesda, so we could get the video. Okay. But it was so much corruption in boxing.
Oh, it is.
It was just so much corruption in boxing. But I love that the females, there's over 1,000 female professional boxing worldwide. But what I will continue to fight for in terms of Title IX is you cannot allow transformative men in female sports. You cannot do that. Just like at the Olympics just a few months ago, the girl got hit one time. She said she had never been hit like that in her life, because women will never ever have the ability. I don't care what a man try to transform himself into being.
A man.
He can get breast implants, he can get butt implants, he can get tummy tuck, he can get whatever. But you know what he can't change? He can't change the structure of his skeletal and muscular systems.
Facts.
That will never happen.
Facts.
So the bottom line is you cannot have men that just voids out all of Title IX, something women have fought for and Congress finally passed.
Facts.
We can't have that.
That's right.
Not in this country. We can't.
And you know, Maurice Blocker, he's another one. He's homeless in Germantown, Maryland. And people say they've seen him in shopping centers. He don't take a handout or nothing like that. You remember Maurice Blocker?
I talked to Maurice. Actually, I offered Maurice back in 2016 an opportunity to come in and be an assistant coach in our boxing program, because I think he wasn't living too far from, I think he was living in Glen Burnie at the time. So we were communicating on social media a lot, but I couldn't never pinpoint him. And then came the pandemic. So what's he doing now? I worry about all
this. He's in Germantown. He's over there in Germantown because he lived in, they had him and Simon Brown lived in Germantown. And
I remember when Simon sold his house back in I think it was like 1998 up in Potomac. So he sold that house. And I just saw I saw Simon over at Ray's Gym in December of 2015. We took pictures and everything because Kenny had one of his fighters in that East Coast tournament.
Yeah, I saw that picture with y'all too.
Yeah, and he was honored and awarded Lifetime Achievement Award.
We had interviewed Simon about 3 months ago, about 6 months ago. He's now he's in Gaithersburg. He's doing good. He's training fighters.
Oh, nice. I got to go and visit his gym.
Yeah, he's in Gaithersburg. I mean, not Gaithersburg. He's in not not Gaithersburg. He's in
Germantown.
Hagerstown. He's in
Oh,
Hagerstown.
Hagerstown. Okay.
Hagerstown.
Okay.
He
So
moved to
he's
Hagerstown.
out there near where he
Yeah,
basically,
close to it.
yeah.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
Maurice Walker, they say he's suffering from mental illness or something.
Who? Maurice?
Yeah,
Maurice is in
Simon
he
tried
in
to tell me
Germantown.
something.
Yeah.
Maurice is probably suffering from early dementia.
Yeah.
And just like Pernell Whitaker, and I just almost cried when I heard that Pernell was killed by a hit, by
Yeah.
being hit by that pickup truck. Because let me tell you another thing, it is so important. Oh, it's so important that we take care of our vet athletes. It's so important because even with our football players and our, when you have that contact sports
Impact.
where you can become so injured, and over time, they come down with early dementia.
That's right.
And I just thank God that Kenny's dementia in when he turned 48 was diagnosed where it wasn't Alzheimer's related. It was 3 small, tiny injuries to the brain.
Wow.
To a certain, and that's why I created this headgear, and I'm really lobbying. We're going to get it passed. I really believe on the Trump administration, I can get it passed because I know all those boys and girls up on the Hill, and they are about fairness. He's going to eliminate men in sports and women's sports. That's going to be one of the first executive orders he signs.
Okay.
But we have to do that.
Sport. It's very dangerous.
Absolutely.
Very dangerous. And that's why the boxer is supposed to get the most of the money.
Absolutely.
And everybody juicing the boxer, in the end, you will be left with just memories, and everybody's got the money, and everybody else is gone.
And it's terrible. It's terrible because I remember when Kenny turned, I always think ahead, when Kenny turned 30, I want to say 33 or 34, I actually got him enrolled at Montgomery College to get a degree in building trade technology.
Okay.
And I got him into the apprentice program in the union, in the local union. And then I knew the vice president of human resources for Clark Construction.
Okay.
And we got him in Clark. He became their lead carpenter on commercial projects, the safety guy. So he made really good money. And he did that. He got into that career and became the best of the best. 25 years, he was the lead carpenter for Clark Construction, and he still boxed for 30. So he had 2 careers.
So,
and you have to prepare those athletes for what's after that career, because those are athletes are very short-lived. And I don't care what sport it is, because our body is going to not perform the same.
Facts.
You're going to reach your peak at about 35, 38 years old. You're going to reach a certain peak.
Facts.
And when you have people like Dale Green, and people in football that can go till they're 43, 44 years, that's a blessing. That's because those guys or women have never did anything abusive to their bodies.
Facts.
You believe that.
That's facts.
Okay. That's why they can go the distance.
Right.
That's why Kenny has been such a fight. I am so proud of my husband. He goes to work with me every day. He's got his own desk. Okay. They just admire him at Kemper Life. We won the trip to Mexico this year. Top 10 in the company. It's a Berkshire Hathaway Warren Buffett company.
Okay.
It's been around 120 years. And I've been a part of that Olympic Gold Club now for 5 years.
Okay.
So we don't play.
Zulieka, what sign should someone like a spouse or a daughter or nowadays it's female boxers or a husband. Now
Right,
females are
right,
boxers.
right.
What signs should we be looking for to know that the dementia, the early stages of that from the brain damage of the sport?
So
How how should we know to look for that?
So let me tell you, and I'm going to give you the key to longevity living with that, with dementia.
Okay.
That even the average behavioral or bio neurologists don't quite understand, because
Okay.
I've had a unique opportunity to actually be with somebody 724, 365 days
Right.
and test different methods to slow the progression of that disease down. One of the first signs is you will notice if you're having a conversation and then all of a sudden that person stops talking, and it almost appears that they wandered off somewhere
Okay.
other than what you were involved in exchanging in that conversation.
Right.
And out of nowhere, you see their eyes come back focused. Okay. They're going to notice it, because Baysmore actually called to me and said, Z, something's not right.
Right.
I found myself today and I actually was thinking something, and then it seemed like my mind just got blank.
Wow.
And so I told him, meet me down at the archive station. And this was in 2009, January. I said, meet me at the archive station. So I came down and I took him to George Washington emergency room, George Washington Hospital.
Mm-hmm.
And they did a CAT scan. And then they recommended him to gave a referral for a neurologist.
Okay.
Everybody knew who Kenny Baysmore was. You walked in here and they knew who he was. They knew he was a boxer. Mm-hmm. So then I noticed that all of a sudden, like, I could ask him something and he would just snap, like, come back like aggressive.
Yeah. Right.
Not like himself, because he's always been a gentleman.
Right, right.
A low-key type of individual. And so I'm like, what's wrong with him? In my mind.
Right.
But then this was leading up to him finally calling me and telling me, I think he actually got stuck. He got off from work and got on the train and got off the train and realized that he had lost a chain of thought to get home.
Right.
Okay. So when you get off at that archives and you catch the 7th Street bus, that's going to take you back to Irving in Georgia.
Right.
Where he lived. And so I took him there. We had an appointment like maybe 4 days later with a neurologist from George Washington. And they did the MRI. She set me in the room with Kenny. And by that time, he was very almost angry, almost like he didn't really realize what he was looking at in terms of the x-ray. But you could see where a certain portion of the brain has shrunk.
Right.
You can literally see it on the x-ray. And that's what happens, because dementia is an active disease that actually eats and feeds on the brain cells.
Wow.
And the thing about it is, what I found out people normally don't live over 10 years with dementia.
Right.
That's very unusual for someone to live over 10 years with dementia. And I'm going to tell you why. When you start experiencing a change in how they articulate, and a lot of people used to refer to it as, oh, they're punch drunk. No.
Yes.
It's just that they have some injuries in a certain cortex of the brain. And they're coming down with something early. Either dementia. It can also lead to Parkinson.
Yes.
Which was what happened to Ali. And I believe Foreman, that fight with Foreman took him there, because he took a lot of punches.
Yeah.
Yeah, he took a lot of punches.
He did.
But one thing that helped Kenny is I'm the type of person, I think because I coached him so long, helped to raise his daughter, and we became best of friends. And even after I found that out, he said, well, the doctor told me, well, Miss Moore, I know that y'all are planning to get married. That's your fiance. This was now, mind you, this was in 2009.
Okay.
So she said, but he's not going to ever be the same. It's only going to progress. And so I looked at her and I said, I understand that. I understand it's probably going to progress because there's no cure for it.
Right.
But I've always been a believer that there is nothing, because my son 10 years prior to that was hit by a car in the crosswalk coming from University of Maryland Smith Business School, and he was going into his second year, and the car tried to keep going. It was on all the news stations. I ran into it. I was coming from work and drove and saw my son laid out on the ground, and they're working on him, trying to get him to breathe. And he was in a coma, came out. But I worked with my son. And when the neurologist, the director of neurology told me, Miss Moore, get over, he's never going back to college. He's on a four-year-old level. And I'm like, excuse me, but you won't have the last say. God, him, and I will.
That's right.
So I took off the next day, 18 months paid from the Republican National Committee. That's when I was working on Capitol Hill. And then I took another 18 months non-pay. But the first 2 years, my son was in denial. I mean, he was jumping out of windows, running away from home. I mean, because he was seeing like ghosts.
Wow.
He literally was seeing spirits and stuff. And so after he came out of denial, because he couldn't remember being hit by the car, he couldn't remember dying for a couple of minutes and being in a coma. So I had to teach him how to learn again. Once I taught him how to learn again, he took it serious. He listened to everything that I told him to do. He began to work hard every day. He went back to writing 2 hours a day, reading 2 hours a day. He couldn't even write his name.
Wow.
And so a person with dementia, you can see the progression. You can see the progression. But the key to it is to keep their brain active. Because one thing I found out, God is great. I just got to give him the praise, you guys.
Absolutely.
I'm going to tell you how great God is. When he created man, he gave us billions of brain cells.
Right.
And we only use 10 to 15%. Geniuses use about 15%.
Right.
Okay? And that was on purpose for purpose.
Right.
Because people get injured, people get disease, but your lifetime, you can live with it, because there's a key. They can't rebuild themselves. Those brain cells cannot repair themselves. But I wrote a white paper about the brain, and now all of the biologists is looking at the brain, starting with when Obama actually put $10 billion for them to map the brain. Because I noticed with my son, and that's why I've been able to help Kenny so much, is the more you exercise the brain, what happens is when you get tired, you know how you could be reading sometime and you get so tired till you have to lay the book down? No, keep reading, because an amazing thing happens. The neurons will start firing up and turning on some of those dormant cells like a light switch to help the cognitive side of your brain expand.
My mother's going through that. She's 89. But what I do for my mother, coloring books, and I also use I give her this supplement called Lion's Mane for the memory.
That's good too.
Yeah, the liquid kind of gonna be his tongue.
Omega-3s is good. Fish oil is good.
Sure.
Magnesium is excellent as well. But you got to have the right dosage. Yeah, you have to have the right dosage of it.
Facts.
Because it can put too much toxins in your liver and overwhelm your liver. But we definitely going to try that product that you guys are selling, because I went and did a little research on it.
Okay.
Last night after I spoke to you, Rashid.
Okay.
But another thing you can do with your mom is make sure she's walking. If it hasn't taken her ability to walk yet, you will notice
she goes on adult daycare, with her senior citizen people.
Oh, that's good. So she's interacting with people. Okay.
Yes.
So one thing, like having Kenny working beside me, like when he started, it's almost like doing a full circle, because he was working for the National Football League Players Association part-time as a carrier, a messenger, and he did all the Xeroxing and mail distribution for them on Connecticut Avenue. And that's what I have him doing at Kemper. So he still remembers how to do those things. And if he gets stuck, I just talk him through it. I coach him. And I'll tell the guys at the office, because they always messing with him. He got one friend there, Mark. And Mark is a runner. So Mark, and he's a bicyclist. So Mark is in DC. I'm going to introduce y'all to Mark one day.
Okay.
Mark, little short guy, Mark comes over to his desk and starts throwing punches and talking about, okay, Chair, you've been walking. Have you been walking or jogging? Have you been walking? So I said last week, Mark tried that. Kenny jumped up and started throwing punches. I said, Mark, I done told you about messing with Kenny like that.
Ain't the right thing to do.
Don't get knocked out.
Flashback moment.
Flashback, he going to sleep.
What you say, Kenny? What you say to Mark? Don't, Kenny. What you say to Mark? Come on, get up. What you show Mark?
Let's go, champ. Let's go, champ.
That's right. Throw that hook. So
let's go, champ.
So I gotta tell you, Mark hauled ass around the office. Everybody in the office, the district manager, everybody was cracking up. They said, she keep telling you stop playing with your baseball like that, the champ like that.
Wow.
So it's just, I'm excited this year. The Hall of Fame in our nation's capital. I'm so excited for him because I am so excited. I've been praying over that for 3 years now.
Yes.
Rashid,
overdue.
Thank you, both of you, because
yes, indeed.
of your advocacy. Yeah.
Let's thank Candy Jacobs.
I thank Candy. I am so appreciative. I can't wait to meet her. And I'm so proud of her. She's the president.
Yes, indeed.
I love it.
Do you remember her? You remember her?
I remember. I think I remember Candy. But
Candy is Dave Jacobs' daughter.
Yes, I do know Mr. Jacobs.
Yes, indeed. That's Dave Jacobs' daughter. Yes, indeed.
Oh my God.
Yes, indeed. She's a pillar. She's the pillar in the boxing community in this area.
Yeah.
That's good.
Done a lot. Yes, indeed.
Yeah. There was an Olympic champion out of here in Baltimore, and I'm sure y'all probably have heard of her. But when I came in Omar's gym, Marvin McDowell,
good brother.
And when I came in Umar, because Umar was trying to get me to partner with his gym, but I was already partnered with Mr. Chan and Mason's gym.
Okay.
But I ended up going to Coppin State and speaking to the president of the athletic division.
Okay.
And Coppin, the director over there, introduced us to the director of Frederick Douglass High School, which is on their campus. And they are excited. They want me to bring a boxing program over to the high school.
Okay.
So I'm thinking about doing it, but then I had an elementary school, with
Okay.
a Boys and Girls Club
The young
in
one,
there
real
that
young
want
one.
me to bring it over to their school. So I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, we're gonna make a decision. We're gonna make a decision. You know, they closed everything down during the pandemic. Merlin was crazy with it for 2 years. Children
Right.
was out of school for a year and a half. It was insane.
Right.
Had to actually host a rally to get the mayor and them to just cut it out. Y'all
Right.
trying
Right. Right.
y'all taking away our constitutional rights and
Right.
freedom.
Right.
No,
Right.
okay. I've got a press conference I'm doing tomorrow.
Okay.
Oh,
What
wow.
time?
On 11 o'clock. 11
Okay.
o'clock. I'm
You
still
gonna be
putting the
live
pressure
again?
on Mary. Yeah, I'm still
Okay.
putting the pressure on Mary, Brandon Scott,
Okay.
because they're gonna do what our tax dollars said it's supposed to do.
That's
Those
right.
2 hotels are supposed to be converted into permanent alternative housing
Okay.
for the
Great.
homeless.
That's
So
outstanding.
it's an honor and a pleasure to have you guys on here today and being able to bless us with your story.
Yes.
You know you're welcome here anytime. I'm gonna pass it back to my
Okay.
brother Mardi.
Thank you. First, I'd like to thank Rashid Hammond for keeping this platform, which is DC Boxing Legend, for the platform for all of us to use, the champions, the amateurs, or people participating, the legacy that he's keeping up. This is a great thing he's done to keep the baton moving and acknowledging all of our fighters, the past and the future.
Absolutely.
Then I like to
I want y'all to cover some stuff too that we're
so
gonna
that
do.
We
okay.
would love to. We
Yeah,
would
love
love
to.
to.
I want y'all
We
to
would
cover
love to.
something. Are you the engineer, Rashid?
Yeah,
Yes.
that'd be me back here working
Yeah,
behind
he
here.
heard you there.
Are you a great editor? Because I loved your intro.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
pretty decent.
you're
I'm
pretty
pretty
good.
good with it. Yeah, I'm pretty
I
good
may have
with
to
it.
retain you.
Okay. Okay.
I'm getting ready to bring back a show on YouTube by Great Demand called Let's Talk Money.
Okay. Okay.
So I need and we're going to be doing 2 shows on Z-Bay Promotions
That's
channel.
good.
Okay.
That's good.
Okay.
So,
Yeah,
Great.
yeah, I can
yeah,
help you out with that for
Yeah,
sure. For
you
yeah.
got
sure.
the man right there. I would
Yes,
like you
indeed.
sit down, me and Rashid, we could discuss business and things of that nature too, outside of boxing, because you know
Okay.
a lot of input. Rashid think business. I like to think business,
Yes,
and
indeed.
you got business.
Mhm.
You got a lot of experience, and we would love to.
Y'all brothers can call me anytime.
I look
I
Okay.
am
forward to it because
yeah,
I,
y'all can
I
call me
definitely
anytime.
want to lobby that. I'm really want to start putting boots on the ground with this pension for boxers and health
Let's do a
insurance
press
and
conference.
just do one. I'm ready to do
Let
one.
me
Yeah.
let me organize a press conference
Okay.
for Capitol Hill.
Okay.
And
Let's
yeah,
do it.
wait until after the inauguration,
Okay.
after the first 100 days. And that gives me more time to lobby because I'll be in Annapolis next week,
Okay.
starting to actually talk and work and communicate and present to some of our delegates here in the state of Maryland.
Okay.
Okay.
Because
And
what we
yeah,
can do.
let's definitely plan to do that. And let's make sure a lot of our boxers participate and that will be at the press conference. We need to share some of the stories and testify in front of Congress about how this affects families, how it affects them at such a young age. If you consider 48 years old, coming
Yeah.
down with early dementia, and
Right.
he'll be 64 this year. That's such a blessing that he's still here. I know
Most
so
definitely.
many people that pass away because it takes away your sensory system.
Right.
So he lost his sense to smell.
What?
Yeah, back in 2017.
That's from boxing?
That's from the dementia.
Dementia.
And
Wow.
if you notice your mom, or is it your grandmother? If you notice your
Mom.
grandmother, when she's eating, is she having problems swallowing now? I can't hear.
You muted, brother.
Okay. But if you have problems, they begin to have problems swallowing. Once that happens, they're in and out of the hospital because the first thing that breaks down is their kidneys.
Wow.
So it's a lot behind it. But I make sure Champ eats 3 balanced meals every day.
So when we do this press conference, I would love to I'm gonna fly some people in. Have some people fly in.
Okay.
Some champions when we go down to this to Capitol Hill.
Yes.
Like I had probably guys like James Toney, guys that you can tell that's having some issues
Absolutely.
with it. Riddick Bowe, these guys, you can notice the signs. So I want to have those guys around, and I can have them come in town. We probably get Ray and get a whole bunch of legends, all the world champions and legends.
That puts the pressure and the focus.
Yeah, exactly.
For Congress to do the right thing.
Let's do it, because I know you're able to do it. That's why I'm looking forward. I know you
God
can
just sent me you.
Yes, so because it's time to lobby.
It's time. Everything is in place.
Yes,
everything
indeed.
is in place.
Yes, indeed. Because our fighters don't deserve to be suffering by themselves. A lot of it's very fortunate that he has you to guide and help him. But it's a lot of champions don't have nobody.
That's why Pernell got killed.
Exactly. Who was there?
He wandered out and he got confused.
Yeah.
I hit him and hit him so hard because he probably stepped right out in the street.
Yeah.
From being
got hit. That's what happened.
Yeah, because sometimes I have to hold my baby's hand sometimes.
Exactly.
But I hold his hand and he's okay.
Yes, indeed.
You know?
Yes, indeed.
And they deserve so much because they've entertained
been through it.
The
world and put their lives on the line.
On the line.
Yeah.
Every time they step in that ring.
Yeah. So we're gonna sit down and talk. I'm gonna close this out.
Okay.
We got some good time in there. I appreciate you guys. Champ, we appreciate you. Appreciate you. Appreciate you, Champ. Good seeing you. I haven't seen you since like 1992 up Hillcrest.
All right, bye, man.
Let's go, champ. Peace and blessings now.
So I'll see you in a little while, right?
See you in a while, champ. Be good now.
I sure will.
Ladies and gentlemen, it was an honor and a pleasure to have no other than the Baysmores, Zulieka Baysmore and Kenneth Baysmore.
Yes, there you go.
Boxing legend. Thank y'all for coming on. Peace and blessings.
Thank you.
If you're looking for a way to power up your nutrients with a plant-based protein powder, then raw vegan plant-based protein is the perfect choice. This vegan protein is packed with essential nutrients to help you stay energized and healthy. With plant-based protein powder becoming increasingly popular amongst health-conscious individuals, it's no surprise that raw vegan plant-based proteins has become a leader in the industry. Whether you're an athlete or just looking to increase your daily protein intake, this vegan protein powder can help you reach your goals. Visit rawvegan.com. Again, rawvegan.com.